New Chevy Nova.
If you've been following my channel for a while, you know what this car is. But if not, you may be staring at this thing wondering what the heck you're looking at. This is my 1988 Chevrolet Nova twin cam. Yes, you've probably seen the base model Nova from the mid-80s, but they only ended up making about 3,300 of these special edition twin cam models, accounting for only 3% of the total Nova sales in 1988. So what makes this so special? Built in 1988 only, a Toyota 4AG under the hood, 110 horsepower, 7,500 RPM redline, sport suspension, disc brakes, black paint, cool badges, red stripe, built in the Toyota/GM Numi factory. Want to learn more? Click above to watch my full video review of this car. I've only made a few videos with this car, mainly because it just sort of boringly runs and runs without any issues. But out of the 40 or so vehicles I owned in my life, this is by far one of my favorites. So I figured let's make another video with it. Okay, so you're probably wondering, why do I like a 1988 Chevy Nova so much? Yeah, nostalgia is part of it. The cars from the 80s and 90s is what I grew up with, and back when I got my license, that was really all I could afford, was just the cheap econoboxes from this era. Sure, a 1964 Chevy Nova SS might have some more cachet, and certainly would appeal to people who grew up in the 60s and the 70s, but my strongest nostalgia is for the angular, squared-off cars from the 80s and 90s. But part of it is just caring for a car that is underappreciated. You hardly see Novas from this generation in general, let alone the twin cam model. So many cars from the 80s and 90s were treated as disposable appliances, and they got sent to the crusher when the repair bills became more than the car was worth. Somehow this one avoided that fate. Maybe it just didn't get driven that much, or somebody actually really appreciated it. I like that this is a car that you just don't see anymore. Every once in a while, you'll see somebody that catches a glimpse of it and knows what it is, and it takes them back in time for a brief moment. Aside from those touchy-feely things, I love the 4AGE under the hood. It just absolutely loves to scream up to that 7,500 RPM redline. 110 horsepower doesn't sound like much today, but keep in mind, this thing only weighs 2,300 pounds. With more and more cars shifting to things like drive-by-wire and a little bit less connection to the road, I really appreciate the analog experience of this car. You really do feel everything, every bump, every rattle, every little imperfection in the road, but it's kind of what makes it really fun. Sure, it's not the best handling car that came out of 1988, with its tiny 13-inch wheels and a fair amount of body lean, but it's still a whole lot of fun on a back road. And somehow, I don't know how this came to be, it certainly probably wasn't a design decision, but the pedals are perfectly spaced for heel-toe downshifting. You don't think the GM and Toyota designers were thinking about that when they were building this car, do you? For a Nova or a Corolla? But it's kind of perfect for my feet, at least. Yeah, a little bit of understeer. This car is silly! Oh God, that was fun. I love it. It's like it's hard to wipe the smile from my face. Like I'm nearly in tears. This car is so good. All right, after that, why don't I tell you about what I hate about this car? Don't worry, there's not too many things, but there's a few little minor annoyances that that kind of pop up from time to time, like that beeping sound that this stupid stereo makes when you turn off. I don't use the stereo in this car anyway, but yeah, that thing sucks. That's gotta go. All right, what else? No cup holders, so there's no place to put your drink. I mean, most modern cup holders won't hold something this size, but no cup holders is kind of a pain in the butt, especially when you go through a drive-through. Your crotch ends up being the cup holder. Sort of par for the course for many econoboxes from 1988. Also, as I mentioned, the AC doesn't work, so it gets incredibly hot in here. You're just drenched in sweat by the time you're done driving this thing. But you know, it's the analog experience, including this analog stench that you get when you drive this car. It's really kind of a sauna in here. And the interior of this car just rattles like crazy. Everything's kind of squeaks. If you're familiar with cars of this era, you know that that's kind of a common occurrence. And of course, this car is over 30 years old, but I guarantee when this car was new, it probably squeaked then too. And then one thing you have to get used to when driving a car from this era is that the safety features are really lacking by today's standards. I mean, look at how thin these A pillars are and these B pillars. They're really kind of like non-existent. Even the door is super thin. Sometimes it feels like I'm driving a tin can. I usually drive with my headlights on to make myself a little bit more visible. A side impact in this car probably wouldn't end well. So I'm constantly scanning and trying to keep aware of everything that's going on around me because I don't have any of the safety features that everybody in new cars takes for granted. So I do have some plans for this car that I'll document over the coming months. The paint is in pretty good shape. It's not perfect. There's a few blemishes here and there. I definitely don't want to repaint this thing, but I definitely want to see if I can buff out some of those blemishes. And then back here, you can see that the red stripe is starting to come off a little bit. So hopefully I can find a good way to replace that stripe. So this doesn't even really look painted on. It actually just kind of looks like a sticker. Maybe I can find a really thin red sticker I could place over this and kind of make it look like new. Has anybody had this problem with their old vehicles? Let me know what you did in the comments. Maybe I could try that. Here you can see that somebody tried to plasti dip the trim and it kind of wasn't a very good job. You can see a lot of overspray on the door. There's an area where there apparently used to be a roof rack right here that they didn't spray. I have to find the appropriate method to get plasti dip off the paint without scratching the paint. Also, I'm trying to figure out if maybe I should put new plasti dip on this trim or maybe paint it. Let me know what you think. Check this out. A fellow Chevy Nova twin cam owner, yes, there's more than one, sent me these center caps right here. My car was without them ever since I got it, and now it looks pretty nice. It's back to the way it should have looked from the factory. So he had an extra set, and I really appreciate him sending these to me. Us Chevy Nova twin cam owners have to stick together. All four of us. The fact that Novas of this generation were never really considered collectible, and still really aren't, it can be hard to find exterior and interior parts for this thing. I don't usually see Novas in junkyards anymore, and things like the headliner are going to be impossible to find. I'm told that the Corolla FX16 headliner can actually fit in here with a little bit of trimming, but I have to find one of those, and those are hard to find. And then the previous owner put on a cherry bomb exhaust, which doesn't really sound good, especially at like 4,000 RPM, and it's incredibly loud. I usually drive this thing wearing earplugs. So what would you do about this thing right here? First of all, it's not really on there very well. Maybe I should fix that first. Would you go back to the stock exhaust, or do you think it sounds okay? And then there's the brakes. They start to fade after like 2 to 3 hard stops. But I can't really blame the car for that. I only spent $5 for the front pads, for all of them, $5. Yes, they were on clearance at Rock Auto and I thought, hey, I'll just save a few bucks, but they're awful, as you might expect, as I should have known. So yeah, I'm gonna swap out the pads. Hopefully I can get something that's a little bit better that'll allow this to stop better on these back roads. Oh, crap. Tags are expired. And it needs a smog test. I guess I better go get that done. Yep, I should probably be more organized when it comes to my vehicles. Okay, well, that's it for today. I'll have more updates on this car in the coming weeks and months, and hopefully it will pass smog. Wish me luck.